If you are building a camper van and you have not yet made the decision on your camper van electrics, you need to watch this video. If you're new to this channel, I've got a MAN TGE 4x4 long wheelbase, aka Volkswagen Crafter, and I currently run a Clayton Power LPS 3000. But this new system has the following improvements. Almost doubles my 230 watt domestic power to 4,000 watts continuous and 8,000 watts peak. Triples my alternator charging to 1,440 watts. Triples my shore or mains charging to 2,400 watts. It has a remote touchscreen that can be added with just an Ethernet cable. And if that wasn't enough, there's a module that replaces your 12 volt fuse blades and provides an electrically fused, dimmable, fully controllable, remote electric system. This is brand new to the UK. You do not want to miss this video. So let's dive in. Our stock has arrived on these units and it's a new 48 volt system, so it's a jump up from the 12 volt system. This is probably the first Eberspacher Zeliox Neo 4000 in the UK. I've been having a quick look through it. I'm going to take you through it now. I'm just really excited about it. If you are buying a camper van, one of the biggest headaches you are going to have is electrics. It's where you have the biggest worry on safety. It's the steepest learning curve. And it's just one of those areas you don't want to get wrong. So what are the current options on putting electrics in your van? If you watch a lot of van build videos, it will be a lot of Victron kit. The reason I don't like those is because it takes a long time to actually put it all together. There's much more risk of errors. You either have to do it yourself or pay someone else to do it. There's an increase in weight. There's an increase in the space it takes up in your van. If you have any problems, you can't just phone one point of contact because you've built it or someone else has built it. So what are your options? You've got the traditional Victron separate system, something like the Ecoflow Delta Pro, the new power kits, which is their new 48 volt system, consumer level stuff from Bluetti. DJI have come into the market over the last few years with something like their 2000 system. And then you've got all the cheaper systems like Anchor and a load of others. So one of the things that you've got to think about is when I selected the Clayton system, the reason I love that is it wasn't a consumer or prosumer level product. It was an enterprise commercial grade product. It was a product that they were putting into ambulances and work vans. It was something that was designed inside out to be really reliable. So even though they only offered a 2-year guarantee, some of those systems had been in vans and used for 7-8 years. Now I was looking out for other systems. I quite liked the look of the Ecoflow power kit because it was a 48 volt system, and I'll explain the benefits of that in a moment. It was a 48 volt system and there was a little bit more control over how you could connect up things like lights and remotely control them and the way the app worked and all that kind of thing. It just felt more modern. There was a lot more kind of eyes on when it came to using that system. The problem was every time I looked at that system, there was a lot of complaints in the Facebook forums and things like that. The software not working correctly, it being sensitive with solar panels. There was just this kind of flurry of problems that people were hitting. Going from a Clayton 3000, which I've had zero issues with, I didn't want to be putting something in a van that was going to be a headache. So I was constantly looking for something that was enterprise grade, that had really high levels of support. Because one thing that you see with, like your Anchor, Ecoflow, Bluetti, the support on those products is very poor because they are consumer grade products, and also the build is very different. Like there's a lot of plastic, the fans that are used and things like that, whereas with these kind of commercial grade products, everything's made out of like metal and it's like very high grade connections in the way they all work. Right, let's cover off a few specs. This is a 48 volt system versus a 12 volt system. To quickly explain that to a layman, in a vehicle you typically have 12 volt and in your house you typically have 230 volt. If the voltage is higher, then the heat transfer through the cables is a lot less and therefore the cables can be a lot thinner. Also, when you are using 230 volt things like you plug in or you connect your plug sockets around your van and you're using 230 volt product like a hairdryer, coffee machine, whatever, the actual transform from one voltage to another is a lot less, so therefore your overall power can be a lot better. Okay, so I'll quickly cover what the bump is in specs with this over my Clayton 3000. I feel crap doing that because I've had my Clayton for years and the Clayton's a slightly older system, this is a new system, the Clayton's 12 volt, this is 48 volt. If you're a new viewer of the channel, you'll get the over level specs, and if you are a seasoned viewer of the channel, then you'll be able to compare it from the Clayton 3000. So the Clayton was 2,300 watts continuous on the 230 volt output, and it was 3000 watts for 10 minutes, and then its peak was 5000 watts. On this, it's 4000 watts continuous and then 8000 watts peak. So it's quite a big jump in terms of the actual power output. The inbuilt battery, we now jump from 2.1 kilowatt hours all the way up to 2.4 kilowatt hours in the actual inbuilt battery, and there is a payoff in terms of weight, which I'll come to. So with this Zeliox Neo 4000, you are getting that sort of inherent bump in capacity. The other thing is the add-on batteries. A lot of customers were really waiting on the Clayton add-on batteries, and by the time they came out, it was a bit slow. There's a few delays. Price on the add-on batteries was quite high. I was never quite happy with the way the add-on batteries added to the Clayton. I think the Clayton on its own as a lightweight, reliable, commercial grade product is brilliant. But when you were trying to add in the battery, you had a DC-DC converter which sat between the two batteries, and then if you had the supercharger as well, because you was wanting to get the extra charging power, cabling started to get a little bit complicated. You go from something that's quite simple with the all-in-one Clayton system to then something that feels a little bit more cumbersome. With this, you have literally two connections. So there's the add-on batteries. You have an RJ45, you know, like an Ethernet cable, and then you have your battery connections, which is with a sort of a really simple Anderson connector like this, and that's it. Now, with this, you can expand up to 9.6 kilowatt hours with the additional batteries, so you can go up to a whack of a system, which would be great for you know, an off-grid home, canal boats, you name it, you could do a lot with it. So these have heat pads in between them, in between the battery cells. One of the things that you have with lithium is that when you are discharging, you need to be above a certain temperature. I think it's above 10 degrees, something like that, for LiFePO batteries. The mains charging is now 2,400 watts, which is quite a big jump from the 750 watts with the Clayton. The alternator charging, which is the big one for me, is now a whopping 1,440 watts. With the Clayton, it was 500 watts inbuilt in the system, and then it was basically doubled when you got a supercharger. But the supercharger was an additional cost. The solar charging has now jumped up to 1,440 watts, again with this system. And that's a big jump up from the Clayton, which was 400 watts. Now, there is a difference on voltage. This is maximum 30 volts, and the Clayton is a maximum 50 volts on the open voltage. Weight, this is where there's a fair amount of difference. So the Clayton unit was 27.5 kilograms, and this is now 43 kilograms. So you've got a difference of 15 kilograms there. There is an additional battery size, inverter size, and all the rest of it. So you would expect it to be heavier, but that's the difference. The actual size, this is 215 mil in terms of height, 490 mil in terms of width, and 380 in terms of depth. The Clayton was like 40, 28, 26. So in terms of space, the Clayton's kind of like takes up that much room, and then this has got a little bit more here. Warranty, there's a big jump. So the Clayton was 2 years. This now jumps up to 5 years. Before I forget, with the actual alternator as well, in terms of alternator charging, one benefit with the Clayton is that you had the jump start functionality where we had it a couple of times actually. We had it just as we were getting on a ferry in the Highlands. I didn't realise I had my ignition on, battery gone flat. I didn't realise because the van next to me had its engine on, so I thought my engine was on. Come to start the van, flat. Luckily, with the Clayton, press jump start and then it jump starts your engine. This has got the same, but there's a few added benefits. You can trickle charge because of the way the sensitive relay works. A lot of people have problems where if your camper van or motorhome is sat for a little bit and there's a little bit of a drain because of things like trackers, lights, other things that you have plugged in, it's nice to have a little bit of a trickle charge. Clayton did have an upgrade where it could trickle charge, but it had to be plugged into mains from unit to the actual starter battery. Safety, a lot of the systems that you will look at won't have a 230 volt trip. The Clayton system did. It didn't actually have an RCD trip switch like you have in your home. It had an RCBO. The benefit with those is that it kind of monitors earth leakage. This has got the newer IIM monitoring, so it's integrated insulation monitoring. And the difference with that is if you're in a house, you can have your earth grounded to the actual home, and if you are to touch any electrics, then there's a ground fault because you are grounded and then everything will turn off. With a vehicle, if you're outside the van and touch the chassis of the van, there can be a bit of confusion over whether it is or isn't earth, especially with things like moisture or a nicked wire or whatever. In a van, you kind of want a bit more of a sensitive monitoring of of what's going on. So it still has the actual trip switch. It also has software monitoring, leakage protection. It's a jump up in terms of how safe and secure this is. So the ecosystem that comes with this is unreal. This is what gets me really excited about this. The screen is an upgrade. There's a bigger screen made by Zeliox that just plugs in with an RJ45 that gives you full screen control. So if you want a big screen in your van, control all this with, this has it. The other benefit is how everything connects together and what you get included. With a Clayton, you had to pay for the bracket. The bracket's included with this. And the way it works, I'll get a bit of B-roll in of this in the showroom, but you get a template like this with everything laid out, and then these 3 really nicely machined bars. They go onto the floor and get screwed in, and then your unit goes on, slides in, and then screws in, and that's included. Next up, the way the wires connect. It uses an N or Anderson style connectors, and they're all color coded, and they're all color coded on the back of the actual unit as well. Not only that, but you get all the connective shoes ready for crimping included in the actual box. And then you also get the pre-made cables, and then even with the 230 out, if you think of everything, like they've even got like really neat little Wago connectors pre-made and on there for you. In terms of what they provide in the pack, it's unreal. So if you think about that compared to the Clayton, you're not buying a supercharger, you're not having to buy the bracket, there's a lot of cables already included, so you not necessarily have to buy the cable pack. You physically only need to buy a cable and then a crimping tool. A lot of people were buying the remote with the Clayton, but then the app is that good with this, you don't necessarily need the remote. As well as this being priced similar to a Clayton and having all the bumps, you also get a lot of the things that you would have to buy separately with the Clayton. So it's a win-win really. A number of other things that I found out when I tested their older system, which is the Eco 3000, it was a bit noisy. Not kind of, with the Clayton, the fan runs, and with any system you need to cool it. But I was kind of asking questions about the fan, and they were like, oh no, we've improved on that. What we've done is we've separated out to 3 higher quality fans, and the fans only come on when needed. So if you need a little bit of cooling, instead of a big fan running, there's a number of fans running now rather than the one big fan. Right, I'm just gonna talk you through the system quite quickly. I'm gonna do separate videos for this, but if you want to get the gist of whether this is for you, I wanna explain it enough so that you kind of know what it's doing. So first off, I'll just turn it on, just hold the button, and it turns on. Should we take the plastic little bit off the front together? I just love, anyone else love doing this? Ooh. Do you not enjoy doing that, Kate? Not as much as me. Screen is now, it's a touch screen, and the quality of it's really good. And as I said, you have an inbuilt touch screen here, but then on the back, there's the ability to add another display just with an RJ45 lead. Dead simple. There's a new screen coming out, which is a bigger screen. So if you want a screen on the wall in your van, which is fully controllable, and it's got that, and there's something else it does as well, which I'll explain in a minute. But this is not a full review where I'm plugging loads of stuff in and checking power. Just wanted to kind of very quickly show you a few things. So I've just put the mains charging on, and it's pulling a whopping 2,700 watts through the AC charging, and it's saying it's going to take, it's currently at 50% capacity, and it's going to take 29 minutes to charge. Because it's pulling in a lot of charge, you can hear the fans kick in. And then what I'll do is I'll just put a hairdryer in, and then what I'll do is I'll turn this on. So noticeably, when you are discharging, the fans don't come on. And then what I'll do is I'll just turn it off, press the off button, confirm. That's fully off. So the way it all wires together is, as I say, it really excites me in terms of how simple it is. So as I say, everything's included. All the screws for your actual system in terms of how it connects to the floor and is secure to the floor is all included. All your wires are simple. So this is your 230 out, got a really simple connection. It's actually pre-wired as well, so you've got your 3 wires ready to go to your Arctic cable already in. They give you the Wago connectors all pre-made. And then the way it goes in, so for your 230 output here, you've just got a really simple connection. Goes in and it clicks. and then there's like a little grey lever that you pull to disconnect it. Right, I'll just take you through some of the connections on the back. So your solar, your 12 volt input, your 12 volt output, and your 48 additional battery are all color coded. They all come with these Anderson style connectors or ANN connectors. They're really simple in how they work. So you get all the lugs and then they just literally put, so you'd crimp your wire and then your two wires just literally push into there. And then as you push in, you hear a click and it's like a spring system that's like loaded in. And then your Anderson connectors just simply like push in and then click. So it's a really simple system in how it works. And then there's two other connections. Now I'm not going to get into that, but there's other things that you can do with this system in terms of using it to wake or sleep. Things like electric steps or electric awnings. I'll come to that, but I want to try and keep this fairly simple as a run through. There's a handle neatly placed in the middle. Then on this side, there's vents, and there's a handle on this side as well. And on the back, it's pretty plain. You've just got all this powder coated steel all the way around basically. Now there's a part that I want to talk to you about quite quickly, and this will be a separate video, so make sure you like or subscribe. So we also have in stock now the ZCM6. I'm going to quickly take you through what it does. And again, what you get with this ZCM6 is a lot. The way it works, you have this system which all your 12 volt goes into. So again, they've provided a loom with a simple connector. You see that? So a really, really simple connector that connects into the output at the bottom. All your 12 volt devices can be just connected there. So if you think ceiling fan, fridge, lights, water pump, whatever it is that you need. Then with the simple 12 volt Anderson connector out, you'd have two cables. They would just go into here, take those bungs out, and then again, you've got like a simple Wago lever. The two cables go into there, and then what that provides you with, the ability to control all those electrical devices, your lights, electric awning, whatever you want, through remote control or through the two controllers that come with it. So you get two Pico switches or RF switches, and you get 4 on each one. And again, they even give you the batteries for them. And then all the bits that come with it, like all the screws, are all not only packaged separately, but are all like named. And then you even get all the little stickers, which can go onto your 8 different buttons. So to explain that, either in the app or on the screen, because you can also buy a little screen specifically just for this module, or on these buttons, which work very, very quickly considering the wireless. You can turn your lights on and off, your fridge on and off, your electric roll-out awning. Maybe if you've got like the laser lamps at the front of your van, you can control off these buttons. They've all got neatly numbered little labels, so as well as having all the Wago connectors pre-connected, they've got all the little labels on them. Instead of having to run wires around your van to control all these different electronic things, you have full control of it through the app. You've got physical switches all over your van that you can turn on and off. So one could be on your dashboard, one could be at the back of the van, and you can run a number of these. But I'll do a separate video on the ZCM6, but I just wanted to give a very quick overview of the full system. And it doesn't stop there, there's some added benefits as well. One of the problems I had with the Clayton was that the software updates had to be done manually. Engineer had to kind of plug into the system and do the update. With this, the update can be done through the app. So the software update can be done through the app. There's a transparent log that you can see and Zeliox can see on what the system has or hasn't done. The unit's not been charged, or you plug something in that's tripped it, or whatever you've done, software updates, all the rest of it, everything's transparently logged. There's a full audit of everything that the system has done. The software updates are done online and you can do them as and when they come in. If for whatever reason you have a fault, you can download a snapshot of what's happened on the system to send to Zeliox to basically diagnose what's going on. If they need to look in further, they can remotely log in to the system to, again, diagnose what's going on. I pushed them on this. If there's any issues, it's the same thing. If it can't be fixed, either with a snapshot or remotely, they will just send out a new unit. So we'll be able to get a new unit to you, and you take that one out and you can see how easy it all like switches over with all the Anderson connectors. You again switch it out and then they'll send you a new unit. So this is a very similar story to Clayton. They are fitting them in commercial vehicles. I actually pushed to go and see their sister company where they're fitting these into commercial vehicles. So if you think about like Sky or Scottish Power or whatever over here, they're doing all the commercial van fit outs. So it's dead interesting actually. A lot of the vans were Volkswagens and Fords, and Kia seemed to be trumping a lot of those manufacturers with the PV5 and the other stuff that's coming through. So it was a bit telling in terms of what vehicles are being ordered in Europe in huge numbers. It was just a really slick operation. It was nice to go around, see some of the older vehicles that have got the early like Eco and earlier Zeliox systems in that have been running for ages. Looking at some of it, looked like some kind of like nuclear device out of a Marvel film or something with all the lights lit up. I think the important thing for me is just seeing that legacy. They've got units that they've had in. This is now the new 48 volt system. They've had a couple of updates on the software, but so far out of the thousands that have gone into vans, there's only been one fault, where they've had to switch out the system. So the longevity and reliability is another big tick for me. I've had the Clayton in my MAN TGE for 3-4 years, and we're come up to about 40,000 miles so far, and it's been faultless. So I want to see if I can get a product that's got all the added functionality but has got the reliability of the Clayton as well. We have everything in stock. We have the add-on screens, but we don't have the big screens yet, and we don't have the add-on batteries, but they're coming very soon. If you are a van fitter and you're interested in trying this system, give us a shout. We've got really good trade deals. If you are building your first van, this is an absolute cracker. I mean, the Clayton was easy, but this is even easier. If you get any other questions, throw them in the comments below. There'll be a really good introductory offer at the bottom of this video as well, so check that out for the best prices and a link to our website to buy. There will be a Facebook group, so I'll put a link to that. And then the follow-up videos will be install video. I'll film the whole process of me installing this in my van. Little separate videos, control module on the app, and then the additional battery install, but it's looking that easy. I don't think it's gonna be much of a video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.